there are things that you do every day that can essentially be an exercise, but you're doing it in the wrong range of motion or your body is twisted. So if you have the idea of what you want to work on, okay, you just whatever activity you're doing throughout the day, pick that muscle, and there's an exercise you could do with that activity, contracting that muscle and moving in the right range of motion to protect your back and your joints.
Welcome to the Hawks Health Hacks Podcast, your trusted source for wellness, fitness, and healthy lifestyle insights. We believe in empowering you with knowledge to take control of your health. Join us as we explore the latest in self-care, share expert advice, and guide you on your journey to optimal well-being. Let's embark on this path to a healthier you together.
Hi, and welcome to my second episode of Hawks Health Podcast. I'm here today to discuss with my husband, who is a fitness expert and has influenced my life greatly with exercise and fitness and does so much with our day to day with our patients. But I have him here on this podcast as my guest today so we can kind of talk a little bit more with you on how to get more regimented with your exercise and some hacks maybe that can be implemented in your life. So, Dawn, thank you so much for coming on
Thank
to my
you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So I just want to dive in right away and to our listeners, give a little background about you, that you have been a lifelong fitness advocate, working out, as you shared with me, since you're 14 years old, which changed the trajectory of your life.
Mhm.
Your journey with fitness and exercise. And I know that, when we first got together over 20 years ago, how we got together was because you had a personal training gym next door to my chiropractic office, which
That's
led us
right.
to meet and led us to work more closely on helping people with fitness and pain, right? So, one of the biggest struggles that you and I hear in practice and my with patients, and I'm sure with your clients, is being consistent, right? Try to get consistent exercise. So, with your story and wealth of knowledge, why would you say to our listeners movement is so essential for long-term health?
Well, that's an easy one. I mean, you know that old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. Well, that in a lot of cases is true. So movement is essential because if you stay stagnant, you're leading a sedentary life. And of course, I view this as a machine, and we're all machines, just like a car. If you leave a car stagnant for a long period of time, you know, the parts on it are going to start wearing out and they're not going to be operating the way they should be. So it's the same thing with the human body. I mean, you have to use it, you have to move, you have to create that blood flow, and that's very important as far as health goes.
And that's such a good point because they say like you should start your car even if you're not using it on a regular so it doesn't rust out, right? So kind of like this.
Absolutely, and you don't want to rust,
No,
you
we don't want to rush. Want to
know.
rust out. Now, if I
Right?
can share with our listeners, I think one of the biggest things for me and getting inspired with your consistency and watching you, throughout our marriage of 20 years is you are very consistent with exercise. And because of that, if I could just add this tip in because you said, why is it so essential? Most of our listeners, if they're actually watching you, on YouTube or, actually can see you, you're 67 years old and you
Thanks for
probably
that.
I know, but you look like you're probably, maybe in your late 40s, early 50s. I know that you get that all the time. People have their jaws dropping, open when you tell them your age or when I tell them your age because they can't believe how young you look and how vibrant you are and how young you move. So I would like to kind of add in there, it's essential because it's part of what keeps you also from degenerating, moving something around and it's kept
Absolutely.
if you wouldn't agree. Yeah, you tell me if you agree with that.
Yes. I do agree with that. Movement is life, of course. And the more you move, the more you work your muscles, okay, the more protection you're going to have around your joints. So that's very important also. So exercise, that's what makes exercise so important and so essential in your health because of that.
Absolutely. And like I know that a lot of people ask me too, like what are the benefits for, regular movement? As a doctor of chiropractic, I can list out so many scientific things from, lubricating your joints because it's through movement that we get blood flow to our joints and to our muscles, to preventing, degeneration, which I mentioned. But if I was to say one of the biggest health benefits personally for me, I've also been a lifelong exerciser since I was 14 years of age. And I found that, my perspective on why exercise is so important has changed. And here's why. I think, like a lot of people, I used to regard exercise as a weight loss tool. And I know that you have also gotten many clients that come see you. They want to lose weight, right? That's the main thing. Let's exercise, right? So I used to look at that,
Yeah.
sometimes because of my own, issues with my weight or with eating. If I had a bad day of eating when I was younger, I would tell myself, that's okay. I'm going to burn this off on the treadmill tomorrow. I'm going to make
Right.
of calories, right? But as I've aged, and gotten more mature, I've learned that exercise really is not the main result or main goal isn't weight loss. The main goal is your cardiovascular. It's your movement is medicine. It's
Exactly.
protecting your joints, and also it's for the chemical releases of our body, the endorphins, the dopamine, things that are, antidepressant, anti-anxiety is linked to just movement, without having to take a pill per se, right? So now for me, movement, why it's so essential is because it's what keeps me youthful. It keeps my body strong and able to do the things I need to do in terms of taking care of patients and moving people around. So it keeps me healthy, it keeps me strong, it keeps me young.
Right.
Weight loss is actually probably more tied up into our diet, which we'll talk about in another future podcast, of course, all about
So,
food. Yeah,
so Doc, is that some of the biggest mistakes you see people make leading to injury and exercising? You know, categorizing their fitness to weight loss. That's one of your big deals, right?
absolutely. And that's a great question about the mistakes, because I think the fastest way a lot of people get injured when they are exercising. Actually, there's probably like two main things I would say, maybe even three. Okay.
Hmm.
First off is they're not warming themselves up. And
Okay.
and I know you see this with me in office with our patients, right? People come in
Right.
after, trying, maybe to run or do something on the weekend, but they pulled a muscle. Why? Well, you didn't warm up. You didn't even think about stretching and warming up your body by just doing some simple stretches of the muscles you're about to move, breathing and releasing and kind of getting that flexibility can definitely
Hmm.
prevent injury, right? So that's one big mistake. The second mistake that I see frequently is people who try to go from 0 to 100. So perhaps this is the person who has weight loss as their goal, and they maybe haven't worked out in years, right? But they're remembering themselves to the time when they used to work out, and maybe they were
Right.
young and they were healthier, and they think that going in the gym they can do exactly what they did 10 years ago. So maybe they start lifting a heavier weight, maybe they start to run from zero, not running for years, and then boom, they hurt themselves. So sometimes our ego can get in the way of taking things one step at a time, which can lead to injury.
That's
Okay.
true. That's true.
So that for sure, without stretching. And then the third thing is knowing the difference between hurt in a good way and hurt in a bad way, because it's true, we can lift weights and it hurts, right? It's hard to lift, like, heavy weight. It's
Hmm.
also hard sometimes to move your joints around when you haven't moved around. But there is a difference between good and bad pain, and I would say to patients frequently, if you're exercising and you feel sharp pain, severe pain, something that is piercing and makes you feel angry, that's an alarm that I need to stop what I'm doing. Now, if you feel soreness, achiness, that this is just fatiguing, this is just challenging, that's some type of a good pain you want to work through. So those are kind of the mistakes of not listening to your body, not warming yourself up, and then maybe hitting it
Right.
too soon, is what I find. And don't you
Right.
see that too? Like, I mean, what would you give advice to, someone who's dealing with injuries, for example, and they still want to remain active? Because I know that you get, I'm sorry, people with chronic pain, someone who's got a chronic injury and they come and see you, for training. How do you usually tell them to like stay active and prevent further injuries?
Well, depending on the injury, okay, the chronic pain, you could just start really slow. And you know what? I have band stretches that you could do, many different kind of band stretches, depending on where the injury is and what the injury is. You know, there's also, light yoga that you could do, which is essential for stretching and stuff like that. Best way to go for chronic pain, would probably be swimming. Swimming is an excellent exercise, for overall body strength. So there's many things you could do when you're hurting or have chronic pain, to keep yourself going, keep yourself mobile.
And Don, I think that's like kind of what we try to tackle a little bit with some of the things we've done together. And that maybe our listeners don't know is, about 10 years ago, because of working together with so many clients and patients who suffered, for example, with back pain and couldn't exercise, we put together 3 different exercise routines for back pain sufferers. We gave specific stretching, like slower paced exercises that were effective, which is obviously available on Amazon Prime as well for anybody who wants to maybe check out our video. And then now, as we work together on our fitness app, Infinite Athletes, there is the ability, of course, as we put together, where you can choose, if you're rehabbing an injury, then certain exercises would be more geared for you. And then also in the app, we have stretches and things that will be a little bit more conducive for someone who is maybe dealing with a chronic injury or some sort of ache and pain that still wants to get healthy movement in.
So, Doc, do you have any specific exercises that you recommend for improving back pain?
I do. And I know you know what my answer is, but for our listeners, if I
Yeah,
was to simplify, if you're having back pain and you want to strengthen, and of course, one size doesn't fit all, you might want to, my disclaimer is speak to your
right.
doctor. I'm not examining maybe all of our listeners here, but one of the biggest things that I say to patients is anytime you're going to be maybe hurting your back or you want to protect your back, you have a back brace that you are living in constantly. And what is this back brace that we all have? That is our core. So every time you tighten your core, we tighten our core. Our core is the muscles that are not just your abs, but they're also the muscles that go all the way towards the back of the spine. So it's all the muscles that surround the front and back of the spine. So it includes your abs, includes the deeper tissues, includes the spinal muscles. So as soon as you tighten your stomach, and if you do as a listener right now, just suck it in right now with me. As soon as you suck it in, you'll feel all those core muscles engage. And so if you
Absolutely.
were to bend over, grab a weight, but if you first tightened your core, you're more likely to protect your back and strengthen your back while you're performing that exercise. Even the simple active like bicep curls, if it hurts your lower back, if you tightened your core and then did the bicep curls, you might actually prevent hurting your lower back. So that is kind of the biggest thing, is just kind of using your back brace, your core. And then the second exercise that's really, really simple to strengthen that core would be the cat cow exercise. I know I've done many videos on YouTube for patients. It's also in our app, how to do the cat cow, which is you're on your hands and knees and you're arching your lower back and you're flexing your back at the same time you're kind of doing this cat cobra. You can do it seated. You could also do it laying down. So that's probably one of the biggest, most effective exercises to strengthen the back.
Very good. And then that's good for working your abs all day long, too. You could actually, work the abs throughout the day.
And you get more calorie burn out of it. Now, I know that we hear this often, Dawn, like, and that is probably even some of our listeners might feel like you want to exercise, right? The intentions are good. It's part of the goal plan, even maybe the beginning of the year, beginning of the month, beginning of the week, right? But it's hard to fit it in, right? A lot of our clients, patients say they want to do it, but they're just so busy and the day gets away with, without them even getting a chance to get movement in. So what do you usually recommend to clients and patients of ours that tell you that they're just so busy to get that exercise in? What's a good tip?
Oh, oh, dudes, there's no excuse for not working out. I mean, you could work out throughout the day doing your everyday activities, doing housework, vacuuming, and there are things that you do every day that can essentially be an exercise, but you're doing it in the wrong range of motion or your body is twisted. So if you have the idea of what you want to work on, okay, you just whatever activity you're doing throughout the day, pick that muscle, and there's an exercise you could do with that activity, contracting that muscle and moving in the right range of motion to protect your back and your joints.
That's a good point, Don. Like you said, like even housework, and it's making me think of like vacuuming, for example, right? Like if someone's
Yeah,
maybe vacuuming, they could, if they put themselves in the right range of motion and had the thought process of that, I'm going to make this into a workout while I clean the house,
absolutely.
kind of lunge, your legs and alternate them to get more of a workout while you're cleaning the house. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Because by the way, exercise and contracting muscles and working out is 75 to 80% mental anyway. So if you're mentally thinking about that muscle while you're doing some chore or while you're doing a work activity or sitting at your desk or even on your phone, okay, there are things that you could do to contract that muscle uh, without injuring that area.
And, even like you said, it's like if you just think about it, you don't have to spend hours in the gym, right? Like people can get small, short bursts of activity that increases their endorphins, increases their heart rate, whether it's a 10-minute walk or parking
Right.
maybe further away from the entrance of the building, to get that, activity in. So all of that
Absolutely.
matters, even if they're not hitting the gym for a full hour or getting outside for a full hour, like even the 10 minutes at lunch break. Or
Right.
I also sometimes recommend to patients, why don't, if you're sedentary, you're sitting at the computer all day, can you take a phone call or a meeting standing up? You know, um, that would also be suffice for getting some more activity versus nothing.
Yeah, 15 or 20 minutes of workout or movement each day is way better than a 2.5 hour or 3 hour visit to the gym. And then you don't show up again for another week or so. So when you do that, it's like starting over again. But consistency is what we've been talking about.
Consistency is the key, right? And that's the hardest
Mhm.
part, is the start stop and not being consistent. So even if someone can get
Right.
consistent with little bits of movement, it's a great way to start getting more movement going versus not. Now, I do
It
want to
is.
switch gears, if that's okay with you, Don, and
Sure.
ask you more of a personal question because, when we first met over 20 years ago, and I introduced myself as the chiropractor next door, and that I was happy to, help any of your clients that might need some help, with injuries or back pain or neck pain, shoulder pain. But one thing that you had alerted to me at the time, and I think you're 45 or 46 years old, it was that you had never been adjusted. You had not been to a chiropractor before, which blew my mind, because I'm
Right.
like, how are you referring people and you have no experience, as tight and fit as you are with chiropractic? It kind of like shocked me. So I guess my question for you is, how do you feel chiropractic has played a role, even for you, in terms of, helping, and how does it help people recover from injuries, enhance their performance, or how did that actually work out for you? And I know that you're maybe biased because you're married to me, but I would love for our listeners to truly know what that means.
Well, I wasn't married to you then, and my thing about that is, you know how you work out and you take care of other people and you totally forget about yourself because you're doing things for other people, okay? And you think, oh, okay, you'll wait on your own health status or your own, you know, health issues. So that's what happened to me, and where it's made it different in my life. I would work out and I would struggle through workouts because, maybe my joints were out of alignment and I didn't even know this at the time. But I'm thinking, oh, I'm just too sore or what have you. But after getting adjusted and going through that process, I, it clicked. This is what I needed, and moving my joints back into the proper place allowed me to work out better. Not only that, allowed me to sleep better because I wasn't getting enough sleep each night. And I would say, and I told you this a while ago, my first week of adjustments with you was the first time I slept through the night in years. So my hat's off to you and chiropractic for helping me with that.
Not me, it's chiropractic. I just do the
Well,
facility.
you're my chiropractor, so I'm
But it's
thanking you also.
well, thank you so much. But yeah, no, and I remember that one of the things that you had also shared with me too was like when we first met, you were taking like aspirin or Tylenol like on a regular for your aches and pains in your joints that you just got used to doing. And now I don't even think we have aspirin or Tylenol at home. Like it's been years since we.
Very, very, very good point. I was going through a bottle of Advil almost every month, and it was crazy because it stopped helping me, So I haven't taken Advil in years, and that's because of chiropractic. I haven't taken any, pain meds in years. So that is a huge, huge accomplishment in my life. It's a just an eye-opening accomplishment.
And I think like you and I have discovered, from my experience in terms of how chiropractic really helps more with someone who's trying to work out or become more athletic, even if they're not an athlete or they're rehabbing an injury, is what people don't realize is if your joints aren't moving correctly and then you try to strengthen them on like a bad structure, then you're kind of asking for aches and pains and further injury.
You
Getting
are
yeah, and getting things aligned is not just about the alignment, is that it's more about the brain's ability to communicate with the body. And that's because the nervous system, the spinal cord and the nerves are inside the spine, right? So if something's off kilter and it irritates one of the nerves in there, that can affect the function or the communication from the brain to that nerve, which might impact the calf muscle or the quadriceps muscle or maybe the triceps muscle. So everything is interconnected. So when you have
hmm
proper structure, you're more likely to have better function. And when you have better function, you can do all the activities, including your exercise, that much more effective.
right.
So I know that you and I are going to hopefully empower our listeners today with, what we struggle with is getting consistent. So what do you
hmm
think would be a great tip, a fitness hack that you can share to our listeners today with your depth of knowledge and experience over almost, 50 years of working out and training other people?
Oh, my fitness hack. Well, I would say that you need more than one fitness hack. You can't have just one because that one will wear out on you in a minute.
Right.
I always think, well, if I don't work out, how am I going to feel? I'm gonna be sorry I didn't do it. Who's ever worked out before, or who has worked out in the past, or has worked out before and said, "Oh, I hate that I worked out." It's
Or how to
always
regret. Yeah.
it's always I hate that I didn't work out. I hate that I didn't work out. So, in thinking in that way, you're more than likely to do it than not. Okay. And it's the little things, like you said, you don't have to spend 2.5 hours or 3 hours in the gym. You can do little bits of a workout each and every day and get consistent with it. So that's the biggest hack I could tell people is if they're struggling to work out and struggling with being consistent with it.
So start somewhere, start
Start
small,
somewhere
both
small.
counts.
Okay. Absolutely. And, tell yourself, would I feel better if I don't? Or would I feel better if I do?
Ask a good question
Okay.
for yourself. Yes.
Okay. Ask that question to yourself. And the answer is always the same. I'll feel better if I do. It's just getting started. That's the whole idea.
Well, I gotta tell you, I can't remember any time in my years of working out since, like I said, I was 14, right? So over 30 years now, I am me regretting a workout. But I
Mm.
can definitely recall many regrets of days that I didn't work out and feeling that guilt
And
of,
you regret it.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a good point. Is like, are you
hmm
gonna regret it to do it, or you're gonna regret not doing it?
Right.
Which one is it? It's always
Right.
doing it. So, um, great hack.
So if you have that kind of positive attitude, you're more than likely to be consistent in a workout routine and get a routine. Get a small routine for yourself that you can live with and that's easy for you. And trust me, once you do the easy stuff on a consistent basis, it'll make you want to do more and harder stuff.
And I think that's a really good point because sometimes we skip the easy because we think it's not that impactful, that it's easy to
That's right.
forget about or easy not to do as well. But it's always those little things which I discussed in my first podcast. It's always the little things that can move the needle and it compounds over time to really making that bigger impact.
Right.
If there was probably, one simple actionable tip or health hack that I would probably share, to help empower our listeners to get more movement. And I would like to kind of share my health hack. And I do work out, as you know, Dawn, we work out regularly, five,
Mm-hmm.
6 days a week. We're really consistent over, many, many years. So, and I still struggle to feel motivated. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure that if someone who's regular working out and they struggle to be motivated to work out, that people who don't work out regularly are definitely struggling to stay motivated or to get motivated to get moving. So one of my biggest things I tell myself is two things I know. Okay. One, I often say this to you, Dawn, out loud when we're both dreading a workout is, you know what? I get to do this versus I have to do this. I have to work out. I've started to switch my perspective and thinking that how lucky, how grateful am I that I get to move my body this way. I get to get it stronger. I'm able to do this because I am very aware just from patients I take care of that probably would wish that they could do some of the activities or move their bodies in ways that they aren't able to right now. Think of the paraplegic, right? That extreme example who wishes they could go out for a walk. So sometimes I have to remind myself when I'm dreading a workout, just
Mm-hmm.
that little perspective shift. And the second health hack that's really important, and I also use on a regular basis to get myself to work out, because I can talk myself out of it just like anyone else, is get to 10 minutes. The power of 10. And here's what the power of 10 is. Scientifically, biochemistry changes when we get our heart rate up after 10 minutes, somewhere between 7 to 10 minutes for most of us humans, when we're pushing ourselves to breathe harder, to start moving, whether it's a power walk, whether it's, doing push-ups, whatever it may be that's getting our heart rate up. The first 10
Mm-hmm.
minutes are usually painful. And that's because your chemistry is going. So after about 7, 8 minutes, guess what happens? The endorphins start going. The dopamine starts going, your chemistry, the hormones start changing. And what that chemistry is it starts to make you feel better. It actually starts to help you enjoy the exercise more. I know this firsthand every single time. And I know you, Dawn, know this too, because we talk
I
about this.
do, I
Yeah.
do, and I get to work out with you also. That is one of my good deals, my good hacks. But I have to admit, sometimes it takes me 15 to 20 minutes to get that going. But yes, you're absolutely right about that.
But I always say, like, if you're listening here today and you want to start and you can talk yourself out of it, we all can, us humans, right? Our brains can give us an excuse to not do something. Just think of the power of 10. Can I just do 10 minutes? And if you just did 10 minutes of movement, those short spurts, I guarantee that 10 will expand because you'll feel better at 10 minutes to do more if you give yourself the time to do more. And then, like you said, Dawn, earlier, it builds. Once you start doing stuff, it starts to get easier. You want to do more because it's like progress. You feel the progress. And it's
Exactly.
a good
You want
reminder.
to do more.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
that would definitely, I think, be a game changer if you use it because it's absolutely a game changer for me. Even at this point, like I said, still have to, coax myself into working out and change my perspective on a day to day basis.
We
So
both do.
yeah,
I
yeah.
do too. I have to
That
motivate myself.
Hey, that's why we have each other. And that's why we're here today on this podcast, hoping to motivate our listeners to know that you got to start somewhere and starting small is still a great start. So hopefully, if you're struggling with exercise, you're not sure where to start, you can have access to, getting a little bit of like 10 minutes in, getting some stretching, warm your body up, start where you are, and, consider having a health professional help you if you're uncertain from trainers, physical therapists, chiropractic. Our fitness app, Infinite Athletes, is also another great place. If you're not certain and you want some more guided help from the two of us, we're happy to help people because we know movement is medicine. And so hopefully
Exactly.
people will put that more into their lives on a day to day basis.
It's always good to have a partner.
That's a good one too. Yep.
Hmm.
Hold you accountable, right? Just like we have
Exactly.
each other. But yeah, and that's what the app is about too. So we hold each other accountable. So
Right.
Dawn, thank you so much. This was great to have your expertise. And like I said, you've always been an inspiration to me. And knowing
Oh,
that age is just a number, your youth and your vitality is based on how well you move, how well you take care of yourself. So thank you for being such an example and
well,
inspiration to me.
thank you for having me. Yes, absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Well, if I didn't, I'd get in trouble with our marriage. I had to have you on. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, you know that. So
Wonderful.
yes, this was fun.
Well, thank you so much again. And thank you, listeners. We were so happy to have you here. And hopefully, you gained something out of this today with our health hacks.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hawks Health Hacks podcast. We hope today's discussion has provided valuable insights into achieving and maintaining your health. Remember, your well-being is our priority. Visit us at hawkchiropractic.com or call 925-960-1960 to learn more or schedule an appointment.